Hi, this is David with EV World News. We talk about electric vehicles, green energy, and the stock markets. I'm here today with engineer Mike Herzog. Good day, Mike. How's it going?
Glad to be here, David. It is beautiful outside today. It's a wonderful day.
Yeah, oh yeah, and when we talk about being a nice day in Nebraska, that means it's what? It's supposed to break 50 today?
Yeah,
You know,
I'll
if we
take it
were
in February.
if we were in Miami, people have, ear warmers on and all that stuff. But you know what? I didn't think that last snow was ever going to go away. And I'm looking in my backyard. There's not even a sign there was snow here anymore. My front is a little different though, because I had a snow pile that there could have been a car underneath it, and apparently there's not, but it's slowly, slowly going away. But I had some pretty big snow piles. It's hard to imagine all that went away. I'm surprised we're not getting flooding from all that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
anyways, that was quite a bit. Anyways, um, first thing I wanted to talk about today is this article I found on EV rebate programs running out of funds. Now, this is kind of interesting because this is more of a state thing. This isn't talking about the federal, but we did see a couple of years ago. Remember when Tesla sold so many cars that the government ran out of funds for the rebates?
Mhm.
And so we got kind of a similar situation here. Electric vehicle rebate program out of funds. And when it ran out of funds, I guess people had to start pushing their car while wearing white socks with dress shoes. So I'm really
Ooh.
questioning this. Maybe that's a European photo. I'm not sure. I just,
I mean, that
white
looks like
socks.
an old Geo Metro hatchback too. I don't, I don't know.
Oh,
So
yeah,
it
that's
might be a little.
definitely not an EV charging port, is it?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but anyways, the Illinois EPA electric vehicle program is out of money. Bad news if you still haven't applied for the Illinois EPA electric rebate. Let me see. The initial funding amount was $12 million for the state for the fiscal year. Offers $4,000 people who've bought EVs within 90 days. It says it'll prioritize applicants who qualify as low income, but can those people afford a new car? That's one of the things with a lot of things that the governments do where they're trying to create these programs to help the underprivileged or help them start businesses. I don't know if you know this, when California made this thing called social equity program for medical marijuana or recreational marijuana sales, but it was designed to target disadvantaged people, but your legal costs to get set up are about
Oh
$300,000.
my.
Yeah, so I don't know how many socially disadvantaged people. And so what happens is um, it's been very narrow niche to very narrow immigrant communities that have come in from other parts of the world, not North America, and have been able to gobble those up. It's been, they weren't as disadvantaged as one thought, but that's kind of how this goes too. California's EV rebate program has run out of funds. Effective on November 8th of last year, their program closed to new applications. They're eliminating its popular electric car rebate program, which often runs out of money and has long waiting lists, to focus on providing subsidies only to lower income car buyers.
Hmm.
Their program has been in existence since 2010, ends when it runs out of money. In its place, the state will expand a program that provides subsidies only to low to middle income residents, who have more trouble affording electric cars. Well, one of the things is I like the fact that the federal government now has that $4,000 rebate on used cars.
Yep.
I think that's a pretty cool thing because I don't think that this is one of the things with EV adoption. I hear this complaint. Well, only 9% of people bought EVs, and how many people are buying used ones? Well, I've gone looking for used EVs before, and there's no selection
Yeah.
out there, to find them. Even in our market, plug-in hybrids. You
They're
know,
hard to
th
find.
th they're
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 hard to
they're
find.
d nearly impossible to find, and so it's interesting in that there is demand, but the supply is limited in some ways. And you see
Mhm.
this, it's like right now, the Tesla Cybertruck is very limited in production, and there's so many people on the waiting list for those, and people are so pleased. I mean, I've seen people having events where they got their vehicle and they took it somewhere, for an event, just kind of to show off that they actually had one,
Yep.
because it's so taking so long. But
So what's interesting about this article though is it's got a kind of reading through it a very negative spin, on some of it. But isn't the underlying message these programs are selling out? And that's why it's not, hey, nobody took it. We're not going to approve the funds for next year, this or that. So well, they paused it in California's case. They paused it in November. Almost the 11th month of the year because hey, we sold out. What a good
yeah,
thing.
I know. It's just, a lot of news is how you spend stuff. You know how I always say, I'm looking for the bias in a lot of these articles, and we see that from both sides.
Yep.
And, in the US, EVs are a political agenda, and you see spin from both sides because we talk about this all the time. Before we came on, they were talking about all the comments they get about, well, what about the cars catching on fire? And it's like they don't catch on fire as much as gas cars do for the number of them out there. Not, just because there's less EVs, but you know, the average EV doesn't catch on fire. What was it we were looking at? It was like less than 1/20th as often
Yeah,
as
yeah.
gas
From
cars
a
do.
percentage
Yeah,
standpoint,
as a
yeah,
percentage standpoint, and it was, a stupid huge gap. And it's just that, oh yeah, but that EV fire is harder to put out. It's like, well, yeah, but it also isn't sudden either.
yeah.
So
It's not a violent explosion.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's not a violent explosion or anything like that. And you hear all these things about like properties not wanting allowing EVs to be parked in the parking garages because they're afraid it'll catch the building on fire and their insurance won't cover an EV fire in the parking garage. And it's like, what?
yeah.
That
What what
just,
about what about the
you know,
gas cans you have sitting in there?
right. I know. And it is
Right.
crazy. New Jersey paused its EV rebate after running out of money. Prospective EV buyers and those leasing in New Jersey will be in for a shock after it was revealed the local government will soon pause a rebate program. It's just really funny because, like you're saying, well, clearly people are using the rebates. The programs are being, you know,
Yeah.
taken advantage of. We see there was a program during COVID to provide a rebate of 75% on air filtration systems for nonprofits, schools, and things like that. To have hardly anybody bought the damn things. They were about, let's say these things were like $10,000
Mhm.
air filtration systems. No schools had the budget to buy it. Well, then they switched it to free. It was, if you ordered one, you qualified, you could get the damn thing for free. Still, they couldn't get
Still
people to
nobody?
use the thing. There was people who applied, but they made it so difficult to get through the framework that I never saw anybody actually
Mhm.
get the money. I mean, it was really sad. And some of these
And
government
that's
programs
the
are
challenge with, the some of the changes to the federal grant programs and everything like that. It's, well, what actually qualifies? And that list just keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller. But it's, it's another example. The first couple of years it worked. It worked
right.
well. People were taking advantage of it. Now it's, well, we want to encourage domestic production of some of these materials. We want to avoid some overseas production of these materials. Great. If it's so successful, you can start being specific about what you want. That's a really good thing.
Well, and government overreach on some of these programs, especially in grants when you need to hire somebody who's a professional grant writer for $10,000 to write your grant to get a donation from the government to start up something that the money was set aside for because it's such a complicated thing to write and try to get approved. But
Mhm.
anyways, other states are struggling to keep their programs funded. Some states are only offering tax credits to low-income residents who can't afford any new car. Well, that's always a problem. There's a lot of those programs in real estate too, designed to help people who don't make a lot of money qualify, but it ends up being, some of that is a little ridiculous as well. As an example, the whole USDA program for buying houses, you have your income in a lot of states is limited to like an amount that isn't enough to cover a loan
Yeah.
for the houses. And so it doesn't make it, if you fit under the qualification of one with current interest rates, you don't qualify to buy the house
Yeah.
unless you had a massive down payment. Part of the USDA thing is that it's a zero down payment program. Um, let's see. Wealthy drivers who earn over 125,000, so that's the new definition here as wealthy is 125, have been taking advantage of the money, which is smart if you can afford it, but now other states are looking to change the rules too. And other countries are starting to end their subsidies and limit their credits. This is interesting. Here in the USA, the current rules per fueleconomy.gov have changed. Only 12 vehicles are eligible for the $7,500 tax credit. Some brands offer a rebate, but dealers have to pass that along to the customer. You know, but what they're not mentioning here is the fact that if you do it as a commercial lease, then the other vehicles are eligible too. There's all these stupid workarounds on some of this. This is one that people have really figured out. Okay.
Yep.
Let me see. I'm going to try to go into talking about, we've talked lots about the federal rebates on our show. And let's see. And it does at least mention that pre-owned are eligible for 4,000, but it has to be, what is it? I think it has to be under $25,000. What almost all the
It
used
does,
car
yeah.
dealers are doing is they're pricing them at $25,000.
And I don't know the number off the top of my head, but there are it's a lot of rules. I mean, it's just a lot of rules around it and qualifications and still
I
worth
know
it, I
it's
suppose. We'll find out.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of vehicles, but you can get a Tesla Model 3 used in some places. It takes a little looking, but you can find one and you can get it under that $25,000 mark and then add the 4,000 to it. And they're not necessarily the Hertz vehicles. I think
Yep.
I'd stay away from the Hertz vehicles because they were a little, or they were really heavily city driven by Uber drivers.
Mhm.
And I think you know, that's kind of an issue. They were renting them out for 210 a week, a Tesla Model 3 to Uber drivers, and they drove the crap out of them the last couple of years. And so that's why they started running into maintenance issues because they were driven pretty
Because
hard.
they put so many miles on them, and I'm sure it's the charging profile on that too. They're
Mhm.
designed for typical driver, plug it in once a day, plug it in every couple of days, but nah, I need to plug this in every couple of hours, or two or
Well,
three
and
times a day.
and they're supercharging them constantly, so
Yep.
that I'm sure that supercharging only probably isn't as good for the battery as, a slower charge.
Yep.
But anyways, I just thought this was kind of it. Now, this is coming from Newsmax, which is a different slant on a lot of things, the news, than what Bill probably normally chooses. But this was one I thought was interesting. The next one I got is on the flip side. So we were just talking about how rebates are going away. Here's another one you can qualify for. So, um, one goes out the door, another one comes. I sometimes wonder when these rebates are created, is like, who are we trying to benefit in this case? Because they tried really hard to make it so that Tesla didn't qualify for EV rebates for a while there. And some of the Teslas don't. Some of the Tesla Model 3s don't qualify for the $7,500 rebate, but as used cars, they qualify for the $4,000 rebate.
Yeah.
Okay.
It,
And so they
yeah.
make all these strange rules because obviously our government doesn't like Elon Musk. Now, there's now a tax credit for installing an EV charger in your home. Here's what to know. Now, I got to tell you, most people know they can get the $7,500 one when purchasing, but there's another one here. Now, this covers up to 30% of the cost in many suburban and rural areas. So this isn't necessarily in the big city. The charger installation tax credit covers 30% of the cost up to $1,000. And I'm going to tell you, if your charger installation costs you so much, you are taking the whole $1,000, you're probably getting ripped off.
Go find
Because
somebody else. Go find
yeah,
somebody
because
else.
you can buy a charger, a level 2 charger for your home for less than $700, and you should be able to find an electrician that'll install it for no more than 750. So
Yep.
you're talking no more than 1,500 bucks. 30% of that would be $450. So if you're really getting more than that, then
Yeah.
I personally have a problem with that. I'm not saying that there's probably not people that are out there trying to offer a $3,300 installation, with some special deal. Now, if they could include something like the Emporia Energy whole home energy management system, which is about 500 bucks on top of one of their chargers, which is
Yeah.
600 bucks, I could see that. But then even still, that with the cost of the electrician is still no more than about $1,800, and that would be what? Uh, a $500, a little
Hmm.
over 500, maybe
A little
$600
better than that.
credit, less than 600, 550. So I'm just saying that
Well, and that's
somebody's gouging you.
I have recent experience in that. I wish I, could qualify for this, but I put it in 2023, and it was I was surprised at how many brands of chargers are out there and what it looks like. And the number of reviews, that these chargers have gotten. You hear, there's the charge point. A lot of people like the Tesla charger, and move into those spaces, but just I don't want to call them off brand because they're notable brand, but they're not one of the big ones to put in your house. And I think I got mine for a couple $100. And then yeah, the electrician to
Oh,
wire it
wow.
up in my garage was, like you said, probably I think it was in the 500, 750 range. Now I got lucky. Like I had a breaker position. There was a clean path from my box to my garage. They didn't have to take down walls or cut big holes or so.
Hmm.
It was about as straightforward as you could get, but I bet it was around $1,000, $1,200 total, to have all of that done. So exactly like you're saying, I can see where that could go up, but not, yeah, go look through somebody else. And I'll also put it in a plug. I asked my local utility. They have trade allies. Like, hey, I'm putting this in my garage. Do you have anybody you'd recommend? Yeah, here's a list of trade allies we have. These are good people that we vouch for. Phone
Nice,
call, quick,
nice.
easy. They were there in a couple of days and got it done for cheap.
Now, admittedly, you're a utility insider, okay, because you're in that space,
Hmm.
okay? But even still, even if you had two chargers, so here's the crazy thing. If you had two chargers put in your garage for two cars, that electrical cost of installing isn't a whole lot more. The real cost is running it from the box
Yep.
to the garage, okay? So if $750, 500 of that is just running it from the box to the garage. Actually connecting it and all that, I've seen people tell me that if you had the charger put in and then you had the whole home um, monitoring system put in and control system that Emporia offers, it's probably like another 50 to $100
Yeah.
to add that. And I'm just like, wow, that is not much. It goes, yeah, because it's so quick. It's
And
just
it's
a couple
while
minutes.
you're there, you might as
Right,
well.
right.
Yeah.
But
I
either
got
one of them,
half of it's just getting the guy to show up, right?
yeah,
And
the trip
that's
charge.
half your cost.
Yeah. But I get that. But anyways, now here's something interesting. So it's not available everywhere. The law instructed the IRS to make the credit available in low income and outside cities. Let's see if they've got some guidance here. They're not really giving any special guidance on what that determines. So eligible chargers were required to be placed in either low income or non-urban areas, but not clear how many locations would fall under the categories. That always makes, oh, here we go. See if, will it show my, dun, 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 dun. Oh, there we go. Oh, it's the United States. There we go. It's just right there. The big green spot in the middle and up here, apparently in Alaska, we get real close to Russia over there. Now
So
let's
there's
see
just
if we can.
a couple of what they'd call urban dots in there.
Let's see. Oh, I don't know. Did I go the wrong state? I want to come see where we're. There's Wichita. I need to go north of Wichita. There's Omaha. So I'm gonna zone this down. Oh, I can already tell my neighborhood is excluded. Okay, but I'm close. I'm close. I think my coyotes that come to visit me come from this side over here. Kind of looking here to see if I can tell which street, Washington Street. Oh, this is 70. Oh no, no, I'm eligible. I'm
You're
eligible.
eligible
I'm in
for
the
it?
low. Yeah, because it cuts off at it's the east side of 72nd.
Data's fun, isn't it? And census
Yeah.
tracts. Census
Oh,
tracts are
but
always
I'm
always
north of
really interesting.
Cornhusker. Yeah. So anyways, no, I can see my coyotes come from this zone right in here. Oh, anyways, I don't really have a coyote problem. I know they're okay because when I walk my dogs, I know the difference between their poop and dog poop, and so they're still around. Dogs don't poop on the sidewalk, and the coyotes do,
Interesting.
which I find that's kind of interesting too. Anyways, that fun facts about coyotes. Anyways, so apparently most of Nebraska outside of Omaha and Lincoln, in this one little corner of Fremont, is eligible. I would have thought the whole town of Fremont would be eligible, to be honest. It would make a lot of sense. That's not exactly a little town, but anyways, apparently it's more eligible than one would think. You just need to kind of be out of town. I do find that kind of fascinating that my neighborhood fit on that map. I don't know how much I trust that though, but it
It's
was
all
that was
it's
on a government website.
it's all zip codes and census tracts. And once you get down, this is a sidebar to this, but once you get down to the census tract level, it's a little bit, well, it's a smaller area, so it's more refined. But you would be very surprised sometimes if you look at the demographics of your zip code. And there are a lot of nice neighborhoods and zip codes, and then there's a lot of middle class neighborhoods and zip codes, and just where where some of those things balance out and how they end up. It's just a line. It's a line in a database. Check your medium average income is lower than this, you qualify.
When you got your charger put in, did you there's a $500 Nebraska credit, but it's not from the state of Nebraska. It's from one of the power companies.
I
It's
did
like
not, and
Northern
they weren't
Power or
offering that when
something.
I was doing it. They had just
Okay,
stopped.
okay. Anyways, I thought that was kind of interesting. And then we got our next story is on how owning a house can make your EV cheaper. And I thought this is kind of interesting because, it, one of the things is, while I'm a obviously I run this channel, I'm a big proponent of EVs, but I'm not sure that they fit well for people who don't own a house. And so because I feel you have to control your parking spot and you need to have your own charging station. But anyways, so it says, EVs are getting less expensive to own. 1.2 million were sold in the US last year. Now that's new EVs,
Mhm.
and they're growing in market share. And the average price of an EV sold last year was 50,798, which isn't much different than the price of other vehicles. It's only off by $2,000. So that's
I'm
kind of getting
surprised
rid.
by that. I'm very surprised by that, to be honest with you.
Well, the numbers just keep changing, but this is the big thing right here is being in charge of controlling your charging. It makes sense to have an EV for the convenience of being able to charge it at home and never have to worry about going to the gas station. It's funny, people all have this range anxiety. Well, if your car was charged up every day, why would you have range anxiety?
Yeah.
You know, but charging an EV at home costs close to $60 per month. Yeah, and when you think about how much some people spend on gas cars, it's not unusual for that. And I think I saw somewhere in the US that number averages closer to $400.
Oh, yeah. $60. I mean, that's a tank of gas anymore,
Yeah,
depending on the size of your vehicle,
right.
tank and a half.
And people are filling up 5 to 6, depending on how far they commute, 5 to 6 times a month. You know, and now we're in a really cheap part of the country for electricity, but still, um, electric rates at home are cheaper than what you find at public charging stations. That's kind of a big factor too. If you rent, you may not always have the ability to have a home charger. May not. I mean, you most likely won't. Unless you're renting a home. If you're renting a home and, you work it out with the landlord that you can get one installed, that's a pretty decent thing. But most homes at this point aren't coming with them. I just thought that was kind of an interesting
It's kind
point.
of a I mean, it's one of those makes sense though. I mean, yeah, you would expect the primary purchasers of those of electric vehicles now own their own home with the advantage of charging at home. I don't know if we've talked about it before, but I have friends in Chicago, and condos and things like that, and the way it works, and in their garages and the common grounds of their buildings, it's all common. Hey, you pay your condo fee, that covers the lights in the parking garage. Now, one of them had the question, somebody got an EV. Like, well, where's the nearest service? They're metered separately, but it's common grounds in the garage. How how do you figure that out? How do you install it? It's not fair for the rest of the condo dwellers, to foot that bill for, granted 25 units or whatever. Yeah, it's $60 a month. It's not the end of the world, but I mean, those are real questions that people
Well,
are trying to figure out.
and I've seen this in a large like high-rise apartment building where they had a third-party vendor that put in charging stations, and it was a luxury apartment building where the units were, say, $6,000 a month in Fort Lauderdale, but they were charging 34 cents a kilowatt hour to charge your car in there. Okay, that's triple what you'd pay at
Triple. Yeah.
home here in Nebraska, and probably double what you would pay if you lived in a home in Florida. And so I just thought, that's really, nickel and diming. I mean, that at that point, it's not really saving any money over driving a gas car. So that kind of irons out one of the big benefits of having the EV. But and in that particular case, you were charging it, and then you had to go remove the car so that somebody else could use the
Yeah.
charger.
Ooh,
You know,
really?
yeah, because
Oh,
it wasn't like they had
this is
every
your
spot.
spot at this
Yeah,
charger.
this wasn't
Use it
your
how you want.
spot. Yeah, it would just be a situation where you go and you charge and then move your car. Now, had something kind of interesting so in the US, we're not getting hit with all of the Chinese car manufacturers. But what's interesting is so Tesla has the best-selling car period in the world in the Model Y. They aren't the biggest seller of EVs. And this is kind of interesting. So these two are Chinese companies that we don't really talk about much. I do talk about BYD some because we're in Omaha and Warren Buffett owns 8% of BYD. But Geely is another Chinese company, and they both set 2023 EV sales records. And BYD outsells Tesla overall in the EV space now. They just passed them up like a month or so ago. And this is, let me see what we got here. Top Chinese manufacturers on Monday reported record sales of electric vehicles in 23 on back-to-back year-end momentum from their home turf and strong shipments to overseas markets. Now, China is the biggest marketplace for electric vehicles. And after that, it would be the European Union. But latest sales figures come at a time when China is set to surpass Japan as the world's largest car exporter. Now, this is all cars, not just EVs.
Hmm.
And as reported by the Nikkei, buoyed by a growing demand for green energy vehicles worldwide. Now, in China, for some reason, they call them new energy vehicles, but all electrics and plug-in hybrids had export growth grew 83% year over year. That's huge.
That's
That's
yeah.
damn near doubling their exports each year. And let me see, internal combustion cars accounted for 75% of the total Chinese car shipments worldwide. That is okay. So here is for the whole year. BYD shipped 3 million, or they shipped 2.7, about 2.7 million. Here was the sliver just from December, which was 341,000 cars. But let me see here.
Are those available in Europe? I think they are,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, BYD is available in about 70 countries.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's one of the big things. They're coming, all of these Chinese manufacturers are going hard in Europe, and some of the countries are trying to put in more tariffs and stuff to slow down because it's causing issues for some of the companies like Volvo and most notably Volkswagen in terms of some of their sales. It's
Mhm.
cutting in because there's so many. But you see, there's so many of these Chinese EVs. SAIC. This is Tesla in China. Geely, Alon, Chang'an, Li Auto, Great Wall Motor, Neo, Leap Motor. I talk about some of these on the show occasionally. We'll talk about Neo, sometimes about Li Auto. BYD because it's the 800-pound gorilla in the room. But it's interesting kind of to see these companies aren't selling in the US. If they were, there'd be a problem. And that's why I find it fascinating that VinFast, which is the Vietnamese car maker, has got a foothold in the US now, selling in California, and they're opening dealerships all over the country. Let's see. Yeah, BYD retained the title, the biggest selling EV brand in the country. Exports surged
Wow.
334%. And oh yeah, here we go. They have a footprint in 70 countries. And let's see. Oh, so SAIC is part of General Motors. General Motors mini car joint venture in China sold 1.4 million units, 211,000 were overseas exports. That's really interesting to think about because GM bought the plant in China that makes the Gigapress. So it makes the molds for the Gigapress.
Mhm.
And so GM's now going to control that. So they're going to start using it in their manufacturing too, just like Tesla. And so you're really going to, eventually other companies are going to adopt that. But I found that just really fascinating because sometimes I worry about how GM is going to compete. But then you look, one thing's fascinating. I don't really think of Buick as a big brand, but Buick is really popular in China and they sell four EVs in China. And they have four different
Buick?
models of EVs. Buick does, and they sell pretty well over there. And they don't sell any in the United States currently. It's changing. I've seen some
Yeah.
pictures of what the Chinese ones look like, and they're very nice looking vehicles. I mean, you expect Buick to be a high end brand, right?
Mhm.
And anyways, but Buick is a popular brand in China. Yeah.
Wow. I wonder why they haven't brought that over here. I mean, that's just one of those, is it
Well,
a
so
brand
well,
recognition, or
when
I
we
don't
talk
know.
about there being less than 10% of the US market in new car sales are EVs, and you figure half or more of that is Tesla, right?
Yeah. So
And
just the market's just
it
not
just
there yet.
hasn't caught up. Whereas in Europe, that stuff sells well, and in China, it sells well, and China's the hottest market right now for EVs. And so it's kind of fascinating to see some of this. Now, what the deal with Geely? Its EV sales rose 48% year over year, record breaking at 487,000 units. But that included 274,000 cars that were both gas powered and electric sold abroad. Oh, and it owned the Zeekr brand. Oh, I've heard Bill and I have talked about Zeekr previously.
Um,
Um, Delivered 118,000 units. It's more of a high-end brand.
okay.
65% year on year. Missed its delivery goal of 140,000 units. But it's interesting just kind of to see where some of these see like Neo is a popular stock to trade on the Nasdaq. I think it's on Nasdaq. Anyways, it's on a U.S. stock exchange and annual deliveries of 160,000. I mean, it's much smaller. And then here's one here. Some as I don't know what SAIC stands for, but I guess that's the Chinese company and Volkswagen joint
Yeah.
venture. Um, so it's interesting to see some of that. All right, our last story for today, because we've gone kind of long today, but this one's kind of funny. So there's this deal to have this National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program for DC fast chargers every 50 miles. And what's interesting is the choice of the restaurant chain where these are starting to go in wasn't what you would have expected. So, anyways, this is pretty funny. It's Waffle House. Yeah, so I thought this was kind of interesting because Waffle House doesn't have a big parking lot to start with. They don't have a lot of seats. It's kind of a small place. People go to for coffee and get breakfast all anytime kind of thing. But this one's in Lakeland, Tennessee. It's quite possible I've eaten at this one before, um, because I used to live in that area. But this is on US Highway 64 northeast of Memphis, where Lakeland's at, and they're putting in DC fast chargers. So I guess these are DC means they're level 3.
Mhm.
EV charging station must include at least 4 ports with connectors capable of simultaneously charging 4 EVs at 150 kilowatts each, with a power station capacity of 600 kilowatts or more. Now, probably capable of putting more than that out. Because some of the vehicles now are starting to come out that can take in as fast as 5, and I've seen some of them rated as high as 800. So
Yeah.
I know it's quite possible to go faster. Tennessee's future oasis of DC fast charging and Waffle House comfort food is the only restaurant in the state's first round of EV, so one of just two spots, not doubling as a gas station or convenience store.
I
Mm.
I'm gonna say good for you, Waffle House. Like,
Yeah,
when you talk about how to couple that stuff and look at it, I mean, yeah, Waffle House is pretty quick. You get in, have a cup of coffee, have your smothered hash browns, and get out of there. So yeah, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Maybe that is just what they need. Good for you, Waffle House.
yeah. It's interesting to see conservative states, their governors seem to support green initiatives, even if in Congress and the Senate, you don't see it quite so much. Anyways, Mike, good show today. Um, thanks for coming on today. And folks, please leave us a comment. Please make sure to like so this will get seen by more people. And until tomorrow, I wish everybody a good day.